Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Again, doesn't take very long for a lot of truth to come out, a lot of people to be exposed, and a lot of these individuals, of course, get exposed lots of different places, and they get exposed lots of different ways. It really is amazing. And I'll start with this. Yes, of course, there have been numerous truth posts here from President Donald Trump over the last couple of days. Very interesting things, to say the least. Ceasefire, and then some bombs get dropped, and then allegedly not a ceasefire, and then all of a sudden everybody says ceasefire again, and that's the way that is. This right here again, it pulls all of the bad guys out of the weeds. And it shows again how many people have no idea what's going on, and just the amount of cognitive dissonance that exists, and how frequently even those individuals in the so-called, again, alternative media who claim to know what's going on or pontificate, of course, on a day in and day out basis for hours at a time, that even they are wrong constantly. And that, again, very rarely do they ever course correct. A few days may pass where they'll again say, well, okay, we got a few things wrong, but we were only doing it because we care about America and we care about the American people and we don't want war and XYZ. This is why those individuals on the so-called, again, alternative media on the right, that they basically expose themselves as being no different than those on the left. They're highly emotional. They shoot from the hip. They walk on a tight wire. They tell everybody, we didn't vote for this and war is going to be huge and we can't have this and it's going to destroy our economy and our way of life. And then, and this is the funny part, you have endless individuals again rationalizing the involvement of endless people and saying, well, the reason that things are going down the way that they're going down is because this is about creating a one world government. That's all that's happening right now, Sean, is that Donald Trump is ushering in a one world government, and he's doing it with a smile on his face, and he's doing it with MAGA supporters, and that's exactly what's happening, and everybody's being tricked, including you. Again, in moments like this, endless people get exposed for not reading, not thinking, being overly emotional, and not slowing down, and just taking a deep breath and going, you know what? It's not that big a deal. There's no way I've taken in all of the evidence to know every single angle. The same thing is true with endless individuals. So why on earth can anybody arrive at a logical conclusion as to what they think is actually going down? Now, with that aside for a minute, however, in the same vein, I guess, let me mention this point too. And I really do think it boils down to this, to a great extent anyway. When you look at the left and you look at the right, certainly in the media, and I'm just going to focus in on the media first. I'll get to Congress a little bit later or after this. But when you look at the left and you look at the right, in the media, and again, I'm speaking not just about CNN and Fox News. That's sort of the regular paradigm that everybody's familiar with. But I would put Fox News in that same category as CNN. So put all of them in one bucket on one side. And then on the other, you have the Tucker Carlsons, the Alex Joneses, and all of those individuals, the General Mike Flynn's, everybody. Certainly all of those, again, mainstream Rumble crowd individuals, Clayton Morris redacted, those people. I'm not saying that they're all bad people. That's not it. I'm just saying, ask yourself this one question. In those two separate buckets, on those two proverbial sides of the political media coin, what's the one major subject that bypassed both of them, regardless of their level of influence at the time, whether it was more so among the mainstream media and less so among the so-called, alternative media awake crowd? What's the one major subject that infiltrated purposefully, by design, by a plan, that was scripted to educate and wake up? What's that one operation that took place that bypassed both of those buckets and both of those groups in the media and went right to the American people so that the American people could do their own research, so that they could read on their own, think for themselves. And by doing that, they would immediately figure out that both of those buckets of those so-called differing sides in the media are generally the same. What's the one subject? It's the entire Q operation. It's all of those Q posts. That was the plan. That was the entire point. But again, when you look at those two groups of individuals in the media, they both ignored it. All they did was criticize it. They had on their own talking heads, again, all their, whatever it was, basic bullet points and I don't know. Back in the day, it was exhausting. And they weren't even reading it, and they weren't even considering it. Why? Because if they promoted it as media outlets, that would mean that the American people would stop listening to them. They would eventually start thinking for themselves, for potentially the first time in their entire lives. And this isn't even a criticism of citizens who weren't paying attention to those Q drops when they were happening. I fully understand it. I get it. A lot of people weren't tuned into it. They weren't thinking about it. Their lives were busy. They were doing other things. They weren't on the internet. They weren't looking around for information. And even when it made its way into the mainstream as a story, a lot of individuals just dismissed it without even looking into it. And even again, myself included, when I would tell people about it and I would say, you need to look into this, they'd be like, really? Okay. And then they wouldn't. And they would just dismiss it. That's the stranglehold that mainstream media headlines have on the American people and had on people around the world. What we're seeing now is they still have a hold on people. And it has a hold on the so-called right and the so-called alternative media. The truth-telling, so they like to think, again, alternative media on the right-hand side of things. Even, the Tucker Carlsons of the world, the Clayton Morrises of the world. These individuals, again, they're making interesting points and they're making interesting arguments, but they're not referencing the largest intelligence drop an information drop of what was actually happening in the past, in real history, the time now, and also, again, what was likely to happen in the future and what we're seeing play out right now. They just dismissed it. So when you don't take evidence into consideration, what do you expect to happen in the future? How can you possibly be objective about anything? And then, of course, what have we seen over the last 24 to 48 to 72 hours? A lot of emotion. A lot of people getting highly emotional, politically speaking, about a lot of stuff going on politically around the world. So a couple of bombs allegedly get dropped. Big deal. A couple of so-called ceasefires don't happen, allegedly, as far as anybody is actually led to believe. Big deal. Then the media ran with, well, a U.S. embassy in Qatar was bombed. That didn't happen. That was fake. No casualties reported. Nobody's reporting about any deaths. So again, what's really been going on? The unfortunate part is the major thing that's been going on is an ignoring of the past and past critical information. That's really one of the largest problems. Again, you can't be objective if you're not taking in copious amounts of information, certainly in real time. It's like a child who walks into the middle of a movie and not only wants to know what is going on in the movie, but they actually are so audacious that they believe that they know what's going on in the movie, having never seen it before, and then they attempt to tell you what the conclusion of the movie will be when they've never even seen it before. Or they're basing their interpretation or analysis on any past movie that they've ever seen. Well, this one must be the same as the one that I saw previously in years past, so it's going to end the same way and it has the same players and this is the way that it works out. I'm telling you, I don't think that's going to happen. This is different. endless people again are being put into these particular spaces and categories because the people who are really in charge are moving them around to expose them a number of different ways. We know that Marjorie Taylor Greene, General Flynn, Alex Jones, Owen Schroyer, we know that those people love to scream and shout. And they're, of course, in one particular category. We know that. They talk to each other, they're on each other's shows, they interview each other, we got it. It's not that they don't say some good things from time to time, they certainly do. But what's the one thing that they've all ignored? They all ignored the entire Q operation. They made fun of it, as a matter of fact, and even just blindly dismissed it. Let me give you another example. Do you remember it wasn't that long ago, at least I don't think so. I'm not sure how many months ago, but it was some months ago. It could have been even last fall. Do you remember the Vladimir Putin, Tucker Carlson interview? Remember at the beginning of that interview, Vladimir Putin started talking and he dominated the conversation. And he was giving Tucker Carlson a history lesson on the geography of Europe and Russia. Now, Tucker Carlson's in a foreign country talking to a foreign leader and interviewing him allegedly. And the foreign leader again says, well, wait a minute. If you want the full context of why we're doing what we're doing now regarding Ukraine, you need the full context. So let me go back hundreds of years ago, and I'll give you again the history of our country. And I'll give you again a brief timeline in chronological order as to what's gone on in Russia and, of course, the surrounding European nations, certainly, of course, in the West, and a number of other things, and a number of other points, because in order for me to explain to you why we're doing what we're doing now, you have to have a firm grasp of what it's like to be living here, and then, of course, what's happened here over the course of these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. In typical Tucker Carlson fashion, and it was pretty disrespectful, I thought, at the time. I even commented on it on the show. He did his Tucker Carlson laugh that he does. He does that thing. And then he goes, I didn't know I was going to get a history lesson. And Vladimir Putin, very calmly, he smirks. He looks right at him and he says, take it easy. Take it easy. I have to explain this to you because you don't know. So let me go back in time and explain this to you, and then maybe you'll see where we're coming from. And then Tucker got real quiet, and he sat there, and the more that he started again to go through the entire history of Russia and Europe and all of it, and the land, and how it's been stolen and taken during war and given back, and this, that, and the other, Vladimir Putin's whole approach was, if it was ours from day one and it was stolen over the course of hundreds of years, it's ours. It's always been ours. So we want it, and we want it back. That makes sense to me. I mean, I understand that. But again, Tucker Carlson got real quiet. He let Vladimir Putin say what he wanted to say. And by the end of that long interview, Tucker Carlson seemed to have a pretty firm grasp as to what was happening. But then when he was being basically not even interviewed, he was just commenting on it in a side room. He goes, I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting a history lesson from Vladimir Putin, but he gave me one anyway. And it's like, see, that's the problem. You need a history lesson first, an accurate one, in order to, again, take in all of the necessary information to realize where we are now. You can't dismiss that with a laugh. You can't. I suppose I could find just a huge clip of Tucker's laugh on YouTube, but the point is that you can't dismiss that kind of information. Just like you can't dismiss almost 5,000 messages from that Q operation that were happening in real time, that had hyperlinks in it to articles, videos, biblical quotes, the founding fathers, literature, and then, of course, geopolitical affairs that have happened in the past, are happening now, and what's likely to happen in the future. You can't dismiss that. Only people's hubris in all of the alternative media outlet would dismiss that, make fun of you in the process for looking at it, and then say again, no, you need to listen to me and watch my show because this is the only place where you can get the truth. You don't need to think for yourself and read that online mysterious, whatever, cryptic nonsense. You don't need to read any of that or think for yourself or broaden your horizons. No. Just keep listening to me. If the alternative media on the so-called right says that, what makes them any different than those on the left? Nothing. They've quite literally become the thing that they hate. They've become the thing that they criticize and make a living criticizing. There's no difference between them. One just appears to be more rational than the other. But again, that only goes so far. My point is that, again, to quote Adolf Hitler very quickly, he said the man who has no sense of history is like a man who has no ears or eyes. It's 100% true. You can't operate logically in the present if you don't have a firm grasp of reality from the past. Reality from the past, not the script that we're all sold, not the story we were all told in school, not the propagandized movies and TV shows and messaging and all of that subliminal messaging and everything else, or even direct messaging. You've got to be able to look past all of that. And it's a task. I fully understand. It's not easy. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes thought. But it's worth it, because then you can start to see things more objectively. Now, again, before I even get into Donald Trump's truth posts from the other day, let me read you again. There are many, like I said, many Q drops with the name Iran in them. And you can get on the Q board. Again, the one that I typically go to is operationq.pub, P-U-B. And in the upper right-hand corner is a search box. You can type in any word, and it'll immediately show you all of the posts where you can find that particular word. There's a particular post here which is 4545 on June 30th of 2020. It's a long post, but it explains a great deal. It says the following, quote, "Humanity is good, but when we let our guard down, we allow darkness to infiltrate and destroy. Like past battles fought, we now face our greatest battle at present, a battle to save our republic, our way of life, and what we decide, each of us, will now decide our future. Will we be a free nation under God, or will we cede our freedom, rights, and liberty to the enemy? We all have a choice to make. Evil, darkness, in kill brackets, emboldened, has never been so exposed to light. They can no longer hide in the shadows. Our system of government has been infiltrated by corrupt and sinister elements. Democracy was almost lost forever." Again, I wish they wouldn't use the word democracy, but again, they've brought it up before. It says, think HRC install. +2 Supreme Court justices. 200 plus judges. Rogue elements expanded inside DOJ, FBI, CIA, NSA, White House, state. Removal, Second Amendment, border, etc. America for sale. China, Russia, Iran, Syria. ISIS and Al-Qaeda expansion surveillance of domestic citizens, modify/change voter rules and regulations, allow illegals plus ballot harvesting with Supreme Court-backed liberal social opinion, sell-off of military to highest bidder to fight international long-standing wars, ... They went on, they said their thirst for one world order, destruction of national sovereignty, serves to obtain control over America and her allies, think EU, European Union, by diluting your vote to oblivion and installing a new one world ruling party. The post isn't even done yet, but I'm going to interject. This again was what we learned about a long time ago, even before the post on 2020, in 2020. But that there's no way that Donald Trump wants a one world government, which means anybody who's claiming that all of this Middle East, whatever it is, back and forth, giant psyop is about ushering in a one world Middle Eastern government has lost their mind. That's not what people want. They want the freedom to move around from country to country if they choose to do so freely, just like we want that in the United States, to be able to move from state to state freely without feeling like we're going to be unsafe or have our rights infringed. That's why you don't see me going to California. That's why you don't see me going to New York. I have no desire to do that for a very, logical reason. Same thing with Florida now. I have no desire to go down to Florida either. I've been there. I know what it's like. I got it. But people still have the right to move around if they want to. Instead of pulling over on the side of the road before you enter California state and locking your gun in the back of your truck instead of carrying it on your hip, like a red-blooded American should be allowed to do. That's just one small example, but, you get what I'm saying. It goes on, this Q post, 4545, ironic. It says the start of this concept began with organizations such as World Health Organization, World Trade Organization, United Nations, ICC, NATO, etc., all meant to weaken the United States. Also, the formation of EU through threat, con, of close proximity attack. Attack on one is an attack on all sales pitch to generate public fear control. See, all of this is explained. I mean, it's fantastic. All of this was explained and laid out perfectly. And then, of course, like most of us did who were reading these Q posts at the time, we would dive into the internet and look for books that were written decades ago describing all of this, and we'd read them. And sure enough, there it all is. The proof was in the pudding the entire time. All these Q posts did, among many other things, was unlock the door. It unlocked the door and it nudged it open. We were the ones who kicked it through and then said, time to start looking around. Time to start thinking about this, reading about this, learning about this. But a Stu Peters, for example, that's why he's one-dimensional. That's why he's ineffective. Because he only screams about one thing. Doesn't matter how often he's wrong. He'll never admit it, but he's wrong a lot on a number of different things. And then, of course, what's the one thing that he does, which again is the same thing that the left-wing media does and the so-called alternative right media does? He blasts the Q posts having never read them before in his entire life. And he writes it off as being some Jewish psyop. If this is a Jewish psyop, it's the worst one ever. Because this woke up endless people to Zionism. It goes on here, the Q post, it says, regarding EU, did each member nation cede sovereignty to Brussels? Regarding EU, European Union, each member must implement EU rules and regulations in all areas. Think immigration, currency, overall control. Their thirst to remove your ability to defend yourself serves to prevent an uprising to challenge their control. There is a fundamental reason why our enemies dare not attack or invade our borders armed citizenry. If America falls, so does the world. If America falls, darkness will soon follow. Only when we stand together, only when we are united, can we defeat this highly entrenched dark enemy. Their power and control relies heavily on an uneducated population. A population that trusts without individual thought, a population that obeys without challenge, a population that remains outside of free thought and instead remains isolated, living in fear inside of the closed-loop echo chamber of the controlled mainstream media. And that, by the way, side note, like I said earlier, is on both sides. Even in the so-called alternative media. It wraps up, it says, "This is not about politics. This is about preserving our way of life and protecting the generations that follow. We are living in biblical times. Children of light versus children of darkness, united against the invisible enemy of all humanity." Q. That was 4 years ago, 11 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days. That's how old that post was. And there's endless more like it. But you'll never get Stu Peters to read that post, because Stu Peters wasn't reading Q posts back in 2020. He was sitting quietly on his show, having nothing but guests on his show talking about COVID and yelling about the shots, which was fine. He served his purpose. That's fine. He just didn't broaden his horizons and understand that even that discussion was taking place in Q drops to not trust the pharmaceutical industry, and that was happening before the COVID lie, before 2020. See what happens when people don't take in information? It's amazing. It just means, again, that it becomes harder to make a logical conclusion in the present if you have no firm grasp of reality in the past. Now, let me get to some of these truth posts here. There was this one, rather famous, certainly, and this is the one that stirred everybody up and exposed a great deal of people. June 23rd, 6:02 p.m. Congratulations to everyone. I'm going to get to that 6:02, by the way. Interesting time. Donald Trump said the following here: "Congratulations to everyone. It's been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions. For 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful on the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will. I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't. And never will. God bless Israel, God bless Iran, God bless the Middle East, God bless the United States of America, and God bless the world." Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. He was right, by the way. He was right again about this turning into a larger war, because that was the point. I just read it to you in the Q post from 5 years ago. That was the entire point. This is playing out like a script, because that's what it is. These places have been dismantled, and now individuals are being exposed. Money has been seized from lots of different angles. Bad people have been taken out. And as far as Iran is concerned, endless videos out there of Iranian people describing their culture. They like Donald Trump. They don't hate him. They respect him 100%. They know that he knows that there's bad people in their government, and that Zionists have infiltrated their government in an attempt, again, to crack down on freedom, essentially, and usher in more Sharia law. As it turns out, the majority of Iranians of all ages don't want Sharia law. They're not interested in any of that. Many of them are just sort of middle-of-the-road religious individuals that just want to live. They don't want to oppress anybody. They just want to live freely. It's a very, I mean, it's certainly a very humane and human aspect of things. Again, when you hear the old, as it's always said before, all the chants of death to America, it doesn't mean you and me. If anybody's chanting that, it's probably, again, their own corrupt government over there yelling that at either innocent individuals over here or even evil politicians over here. You can take it in just about any context you want and interpret that in any angle that you actually want. But this again is where the so-called alternative media on the right immediately fails. It's just over-emotional reactions. So this ceasefire stuff happens, and then you get a live reaction from Tucker Carlson talking with Clayton Morris on Tucker Carlson's show. And he says, I'm sorry, Clayton, I've just got to interrupt very quickly. This is disturbing if it's true that Qatar has fired missiles at the U.S. Embassy, and that apparently is what's taking place now. And then they're both rubbing their faces and, oh my God, this is just horrible. And then Clayton goes, is anybody dead? Oh God. No one died. There's no proof that the embassy was hit. Didn't happen. But again, they're all on the edge of their seats and they're just looking to be right first. And it turns out that they're wrong a lot. They're not wrong about everything. They have good, quiet, rational discussions with one another about some things that are important and things that matter. Not saying that they don't. But they fall into that trap of trying to be first and trying to be right and right first all the time. And when they do that, they're not any different than those that they criticize on the left, because that's what the left does. Look how the left is being manipulated in this too. It's hilarious. Caitlin Collins, again, was talking with Anderson Cooper the other day, live, as Anderson Cooper is allegedly in Tel Aviv. And she's saying, we don't know if there's going to be a ceasefire or not. We know that he's fired off this truth post, and but we just don't know, and we'll have to see how long it lasts. And then Anderson Cooper corrects her and interrupts her in the middle of her broadcast to him and the audience and says, well, as it turns out, Iran has agreed to the ceasefire and so has Israel, and apparently it's now in place. That shut her up real quick. But who fed Anderson Cooper that line? See, this is why the good guys are in control. Because someone fed him that line and told him to say that, to get that story out there. Who cares if a few more bombs drop in the middle of nowhere? They're back to having a ceasefire again. Even though on the morning of Thursday, of course, here on the 24th, Donald Trump said, well, they keep, Israel keeps firing at them, and I don't like the fact that Israel's doing that, and that's not good. When he says that, who is that exposing? It's exposing Netanyahu. Because everybody knows that he's the warmonger. Everybody knows that. Everybody. Netanyahu getting an opportunity to come back to Congress and talk to Congress again, I think is slim to none and slim left town. It isn't going to happen. His time here is over. He's been exposed. The people who he supports and who support him have been exposed in this whole thing, and it keeps happening on a constant basis. Just don't forget that in this exposure, and in a lot of this exposure, individuals on the right are being exposed as well. Even these, again, heavily followed, heavily produced, heavily monetized individuals. Clayton Morris, Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, General Flynn, you name it. Again, you talk about General Flynn being a grifter of the highest order. He got on the Q bandwagon, he rode that wave, and then he stabbed people in the back after taking their money. I've played all the audio on the show of him proving that that's the case. But when Donald Trump looks at people dead in the face and he says, you don't know what's going on, that's because he knows that they don't know what's going on. Just like when we hear people screaming and shouting and all following each other with the same memes and saying the same shit online and whatever else. All of those people don't know what's going on either. I'm not claiming to have all the ins and outs myself. But I slow down and I don't get over emotional and I take my time and I read things and I connect dots. And I've been doing it for a damn long time. I was anonymous. I was an anon for a long time, throughout most of the Q operation, as a matter of fact. On purpose. I was trying to look for a job in higher ed. Imagine me talking about this shit and trying to get a job in higher ed now. I mean, it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. I sat on my book, Purposeful Deception, The Inside Plan to Communize and Destroy American K-12 Education. I sat on that book for almost 9 to 10 months after I wrote it. Because I was like, if I publish this, I don't stand a chance. And I, of course, was referencing Q-Posts and the Great Awakening and all of that and what this movement meant. It's a big deal. It's very important. So this post right here, again, this is important too, because this is part of this. This is a part of this entire plan. This is one of the things that does happen. When Donald Trump puts out a particular post, there are almost always numbers associated with it. Lots of capitalized words, capitalized letters, even misspellings. All of that matters. It's coded. It's always been this way with his tweets. Back when he was on Twitter. It's like this on Truth Social, same thing. Of all of the times to drop this particular post, he drops it at 6:02 p.m. Now, if you bounce over to the Q board and you type in 6:02 and you look at post 6:02, it is hands down one of the most widely watched videos having to do with Donald Trump. Post 6:02 was on January 24th of 2018, and it's a YouTube link, and that's it. I'm going to play the very beginning of this video. You'll know exactly what video this is. This is the video that was titled something like, "This is the video that will get Donald Trump elected." Give this a listen just very quickly at the beginning in 3, 2, 1.
Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. The Washington establishment and the financial and media corporations that fund it exist for only one reason: to protect and enrich itself. The establishment has trillions of dollars at stake in this election. For those who control the levers of power in Washington and for the global special interest, they partner with these people that don't have your good in mind. Our campaign represents a true existential threat like they haven't seen before.
Again, it's a 5 minute and 48 second clip. It's titled, "This Video Will Get Donald Trump Elected." It's on one of endless YouTube channels, but it's on this Enriching Diversity YouTube channel. Again, it's got whatever. On this particular channel, it has 5.6 million views. It matters. It was a huge video. He was spitting in the face of the financial institutions and the media and Zionists who control it. He knows who controls these people. The other day, by the way, on Truth Social also, he played a video clip of Jeffrey Sachs is his name, I believe. Now, he's kind of a globalist and kind of a piece of trash, but at the exact same time, this guy knows that Netanyahu is a piece of trash. And in this clip that Donald Trump put on Truth Social, Jeffrey Sachs, in one of these sort of academic interviews with a slight audience, of course, he was openly saying that Netanyahu is a, quote, murderous son of a bitch, or something along those lines. He openly said it. He goes, he's arguably one of the worst people in the Middle East, and he has to be stopped. If Donald Trump liked Netanyahu so much and was controlled by him, why would he put that video clip out? Why would he say that? That's why all the people who screamed Zion Don at the top of their lungs, they're not taking in evidence. That doesn't make any sense. You can't arrive at a logical conclusion if you don't take in evidence and then think about that evidence. It matters. Certainly chronologically. You have to take it in a very specified order. If you're looking at it from piece to piece, from timeline to timeline, sort of scatterbrained, it's going to be a whole lot harder to figure out. But let me hone in on this particular point too, because I don't want to lose this thought. The banking system. As you heard me mention in a previous episode, there's the whole argument about Iran's banking system. That, well, it's, they just want to, well, they have their own banking system, allegedly, and how good is that system? Who's to say? Probably not very good. But the counter argument, certainly among, again, the people who call people like us Q-tards, those individuals are the ones saying, whatever, you don't know what you're talking about. All they're trying to do is Zion Dawn is trying to infiltrate Iran's banking system. And when they say regime change, all that means is changing their banking system to a Rothschild banking system. You have got to be kidding me. That's even more asinine than anything else that's being said right now. Taking down the central banking system and having nationalistic banking systems is what people want. That's what countries want. They want their own secure banking systems. Doesn't mean that those banking systems can't communicate with one another or trade over currencies, or we can't trade the same currency or similar currencies. That's not what it means. Besides, ask yourself this question. Does it sound like a logical or ethical bank in Iran when Barack Obama is dropping plane loads and crate loads of billions of dollars at an airport, and they're just being lifted off of skids from a forklift out of the back of a plane and just dropped down? Does that sound like an ethical banking system to anybody? Where did that money go? If that amount of money landed in the United States, it'd have to go someplace, like a real bank, and then it would have to be taxed. And then it would have to be traced, and then it would have to be processed, and a number of other things. I don't know all the ins and outs of money moving, but I do know that much. If an airplane of billions of dollars landed in your backyard, what could you do with that? I mean, our banking system would stranglehold you. They'd say, whoa, 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 whoa. What's all this money? Are you going to bury this in your backyard and expect people to not figure out what you're doing? Looks highly suspicious. You can't just roll into your bank with all of these, stacks of bills in the back of a pickup truck and be like, hey, look, I'm just here to make a deposit, no big deal. Where'd you get all this money? None of your business. It would become everybody's business at that point. You'd have 3-letter agencies knocking on your front door. Doesn't sound like much of a banking system over there in Iran when that was allowed to happen. That sounds like a criminal organization. Now, I mentioned the media, of course, earlier in this. I mentioned the media and again, those two separate buckets, the left wing and then the so-called, no, listen to us, we're better than Fox News alternative media on the right. Now look at Congress. Now look at congressmen and women and look at senators. What have they been doing for the last week? Screaming like banshees, back and forth. We don't want this, we don't want that, we didn't vote for this, we don't want war. Israel's only doing this because of this, and again, many of that is accurate. A lot of that is accurate. Netanyahu only wants a war, he wants forever wars. Great, perfect. All you're doing is exposing Netanyahu for the warmonger he is, and that's good. More people waking up to him, that's a good thing. You also have this other fraction of Congress that stays dead quiet because they're not in charge. They don't know what's going on. Congress and the Senate don't run anything in this country. They just don't. They think they do. But if they really wanted to know what was really going on, the real operations that were taking place, I'm not sure Donald Trump and the generals around him would tell them, even if they nicely asked. That's why you again have the Thomas Massie, Donald Trump back and forth thing happening again, where Donald Trump, of course, now is calling for Massie to be primary. Massie's acting like a person who doesn't know what's going on, but at the same time is acting like a person who doesn't want to know what's going on. If you were Congressman Massie, and you've allegedly, again, done some very good things and proposed some very good things, which he has, a lot of it's common sense stuff, I'm all for it. Get rid of the Department of Education, lower taxes, no wasteful spending, don't raise the debt limit, et cetera, et cetera. I get all of that, and that makes sense, and that's good. But if you want to know what's really going on, why wouldn't you just knock on the front door of the White House? and say, Mr. President, can we have a secret meeting between the two of us where you can at least tell me a little bit about what's really been going on this whole time? Or is Massey not allowed to do that? It's not that AIPAC has to control Massey. Maybe there's other people controlling him to either not vote a particular way or try to obstruct something from happening or whatever. Remember, Donald Trump's not bought and sold by these people. But Congress is, because they've been around longer. They've been in office longer than Donald Trump has. They weren't anticipating a Donald Trump showing up. That's the difference here. Let me read this post from GreatAwakening.win. I thought this was rather well done. Explains a number of different things, certainly from this person's perspective. Again, these are all anonymous accounts. But it says the following here, quote, in typical Trump fashion, Trump baited, trolled, and body slammed the narrative all at the same time. On June 24th at 6:02 p.m., Trump announced that a ceasefire deal had been reached with perhaps the strangest wording ever seen in a ceasefire announcement. I, of course, just read it to you, and that was that. They said, did you see what Trump said there? Did you see how he proves this entire war was the inauguration of 6G warfare, sixth generation warfare? Sixth generation warfare is a strategy of warfare that aims to reduce civilian and military casualties by bluffing attacks, giving your enemy advanced warning of strikes, and using high-precision drones and missiles to take out singular targets that must be eliminated. You see, fourth and fifth generation warfare was never about killing officers or generals, even though those people were the ones who plan and orchestrate everything. Rather, casualties were targeted at civilians and soldiers. Simply put, the old way of warfare was to kill the common man while the elites live sumptuously. Trump put an end to that today. Not an immediate end, but a path out. And let's not forget the extremely strange course of this 12-day war. From the very beginning, nearly all attacks were tit for tat. Israel would strike, then shortly after, Iran would strike. This occurred at regular intervals without increasing intensity, though the media coverage would make one think we were all about to die in nuclear hell. And both sides either ignored or downplayed casualties which were overwhelmingly civilian. Various UN organizations complained viciously about Israel's contempt for human rights when they bombed the Iranian state TV station, but then ignored Iran when they struck the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. Trump once again shoved their hypocrisy into the spotlight. He baited them by working in secret with Bibi and Khomeini to make this fake war. Well, that's a stretch. But I'm going to keep going. They said, and now as the war ends, the ceasefire once again allows for 6 more hours of tit-for-tat strikes just as the icing on the cake. The media doesn't even know how to fight this. They just have to accept that the war is ending even as missiles are flying. This isn't the first time Trump controlled the outcome of a war. On January 3rd, 2020, Trump eliminated Qasem Soleimani in a pinpoint strike. Iran responded by bombing a recently evacuated airbase. It was revealed that after the event that Iran notified Trump of the bombing 48 hours prior, giving the base occupants time to leave. Even later, it was revealed that Trump also gave prior notice to Iran about Soleimani's death, and Iran seems to have understood the necessity because they made no attempt at protecting him from the attack, allowing him to ride in an unarmed vehicle out in the open. If I recall correctly, some people on this board noticed that not long after the attack, but didn't connect the dots because how could they have known? Fast forward 5.5, see that, winks, years, and Trump is once again notifying Iran of strikes, with Iran returning the favor. Thus, only infrastructure and designated targets are eliminated, minimizing civilian and military casualty. It says this is such a genius move that basically nobody predicted besides, of course, Q. in Q Post 1570, where they said Iran next. You literally cannot make this up. They said, again, look at the timing. June 20th, Q predicts Iran next. Plus 2 days equals strike on Iran, plus 2 days, a ceasefire. Just like clockwork. They went on and said, and the precision of the strikes is just as beautiful as the ridiculous flexing of U.S. military power. 7 B-2 bombers headed east from Missouri. 7 flew west as a decoy on a nonstop 37-hour trip to strike a point the size of a window with some of the largest bombs in the U.S. arsenal. Bunker busters, apparently. And it says, and then turn around and fly all the way back to Missouri without once landing, being refueled by air tankers the entire way, having total air dominance the entire time. And this right after the military parade was truly master trolling by Trump. Quote, you think that was cool? Question mark, watch this, bombs Iran. It says all of the things Trump has done so far. This is probably the craziest and most awesome one. The media watched Trump seemingly start World War III, only to abruptly declare an end to the war, and with basically no time to formulate a new narrative. Trump doesn't start wars, he ends them. This flew under most everyone's radar, but Trump out of the blue the other day announced that the DRC and Rwanda had agreed to a ceasefire as well, one of the more backwater conflicts in the world, and Trump even cared enough about that to stop it. Truly nothing can stop what is coming. Trump displayed masterful diplomacy to the point where regional powers on the other side of the world not only obey Trump, but play along with his threats and bluffs. If Trump can flip dictators like Khomeini so deftly, what in the world does the deep state have to work with? Unquote. Again, I don't know about flipping people. I don't know if people have been flipped. I don't know if, again, they've been gotten to and said, look, we're going to kill you if you don't play ball. I'm not saying that isn't possible. It certainly could happen. It certainly could have always been what's been going on this entire time. I just know that everybody knows that Netanyahu's the problem. And everybody wants him gone because he's been around a long time. But the point is, again, this is what that peace through strength tagline means. It's legit. But also, again, that these strings have probably been cut a very long time ago. And going after individuals now and eliminating them, well, if that's happening, so be it. Why is that a bad thing? If it makes people free who want to be free, then that's a good thing. Because now Congress is dead quiet about the whole thing. Senators are just receiving here on Thursday apparently a behind-closed-door explanation as to what went on. It's not that they have to be told the truth, they just have to be told enough to satisfy them. But all the warmongers, again, they came right out of the woodwork and everybody got to see who exactly who they were. But you also saw people be dead quiet because both of those sides really don't know what's going on because they're not in control, they're not in charge. Again, they just either move on to the next subject as quickly as they already have because now they're all back in different committees and they're not even talking about this anymore. Just like that. In the blink of an eye, they're not talking about it anymore. They're back talking about wasteful spending, fraud, abuse, the whole thing. Or again, they're riding on Donald Trump's coattails and saying, well, it was absolutely fantastic. Peace through strength works, and isn't that great? See, that's the exact opposite of the way that it was during the Bush years. During the Bush years and Obama years, it was, nope, go get them, bomb everything, more war, more war. That's exactly what we want, and that's what every politician was saying. Representatives, senators, you name it. That's not happening anymore. So yeah, the destruction of the old guard is a very real thing, and it is certainly occurring. I'm going to wrap this up with just one education story very quickly. Thank you for listening to all that, by the way, if you did. Again, it's just my interpretation. I'm just one guy. I'm just not crying over it because there's more going on here, and I think it's a very good thing. But one quick little education story. Well, two, actually. Apparently, Harvard or some radical judge has stopped Donald Trump from being able to not deport, but keep foreigners from entering Harvard University, apparently. And then they said something like, in the meantime, or, just for a certain amount of time, or so far, or whatever exact verbiage they used. In any account, it's going to be interesting to see, again, what happens with these bigger universities, and again, whether or not they end up being exposed as giant spy operations. Because as I said in the last episode, there's no doubt that there's always been Jewish infiltration of these organizations, because many of them, of course, are run by the Jewish lobby, and they have Jewish heads of state, so to speak. Not heads of state, but you get what I'm saying. The individuals that run these universities, the deans and the presidents and the alum and so on and so on. But again, it could just be that more information needs to be given to some of these judges, or these judges' strings need to be cut in order for them to, again, allow these kinds of things to take place. Because, yeah, you have to keep foreign spies out of universities and out of corporations and out of American companies. That has to happen. So we'll certainly see where that ends up in the future. But that has to be something that continues to be squeezed, I think. And I would like to see that happen. I would like less foreigners to show up, clearly. But also, again, individuals break the law while they're over here on a student visa, yeah, get rid of them, regardless of their nationality, regardless of their race. Doesn't matter who they are. They kick out Americans out of American universities all the time for breaking the law, too. The only difference is if you're an American, well, you get to go somewhere else. But yeah, if you're a foreigner, you got to leave the country. Doesn't bother me any. Here's the last thing. I've mentioned this again before, this particular school district in central Ohio, the Westerville City Schools. Basically, they just had a school board meeting a couple of weeks ago, because this Ohio fiscal budget, certainly when it comes to school budgetary funds, is about to come out here in the coming weeks. And this is the one that everybody's been screaming about for over a year. What's interesting is again, it's going to cut public education, which is a good thing. It's going to cut it dramatically. Tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars per school district, of course, depending on size. Westerville, however, has already essentially made the decision, albeit not official yet, but they've made the decision essentially, because they always let it slip. Because again, they're highly emotional, and they let it all slip all the time, that they're going to put another levy on the ballot. What they're probably also going to do is put another taxation levy of sorts on the ballot as well. So it will be more than one way of taxing individuals in that particular area. And they're apparently doing it based on income. The more you make, the more you get taxed. That's essentially it. And I believe it's also based on property values, although I could have that wrong. Either way, keep an eye out for this where you live, regardless of where you live, because if you have had school levies fail in the past, one of the ways that they seek to put a levy back on the ballot is not just their typical school levies that they typically always engage in, but they might even put together some kind of a city council city tax levy that basically makes it look like city council is taxing everybody, when in fact it was the school district's proposal to begin with. So it's a secondary tax, although it's called something else. And if that tax passes, then that money would make its way to the school district also. It's like money laundering. But you're just lying to people about, again, who originally came up with the actual tax plan themselves, and then, of course, where that taxed money is going to go. Again, when the cat's away, the mice play. And this right here is part of the problem with these school boards, certainly when it comes to this budget, is in the next month, this budget is going to be finalized, and then they're all going to panic. Again, Westerville has 3 high schools. So that should tell you the general size of the district. Again, a number of middle schools and then many more elementary schools. They seek to lose, according to their treasurer, if they can be believed, somewhere around $110.5 million if the Ohio budget passes. Now, again, I'm all for it. I love watching these people actually have to do their job. fire people, get rid of programs, get rid of useless, wasteful spending and useless, wasteful programs that, of course, they pay for. But then again, that's not their first move. Their first move is always an attempt to tax everybody. And they still haven't brought back LifeWise yet, which they have to do here before the school year starts, because it's Ohio law now. So they're having to do a whole lot of things that they don't want to do, which is a good thing. I love that kind of stuff. So thank you for listening again, ladies and gentlemen, and I will catch you on Friday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.